Welcome onto the next edition of the Faster Beyond 50 podcast. It is so good to have you with us today. My name is Brad Nadalt. We've got the coach Lindsey with us, and we are doing things slightly differently today because I ran an ultra marathon on the weekend. It's my first ultra in 12 years, and we did a bit of an unpacking of it and on our Comrades Marathon podcast that we host every single week. And we think a lot of the things that we spoke about is really relevant or are really relevant to the Faster Beyond 50 audience. So what we're going to do is we're going to play you that interview and that chat with myself and Lindsey today. Hopefully you get a lot out. We're talking lots about recovery and the importance of recovery and sleep and that sort of thing. So we're going to dive into that right now. It is bright and early Monday morning. We are publishing this slightly later than we do on a Monday, and that's because it was a wild weekend in Cape Town this weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really, really cool being at Two Oceans. And you obviously ran. I was on the side of the road, but on my feet solidly for 4 days. So it feels like I ran Two Oceans, just without the pain and stiffness, just the tiredness that I've got. But yeah, Brad, tell us about your run.
Yeah, Lindsey, that's partly why we wanted to chat today and waited so long to publish this podcast, was to sort of just unpack my Two Oceans a little bit, and then also what it means. And I think a lot of people can take lessons out of Oceans, because I think a lot of people did run, but then looking forward. Yeah, mine, to be honest, I'm disappointed, but I'm not disappointed, if that makes sense. So if you look at the time, official timing, I missed the cutoff by 1 minute and 51 seconds, I think. So yeah, and there's lots of, I mean, I've been thinking about it lots over the last couple of days. There's lots of reasons why, and if you think about it, I mean, 1 minute 52 seconds, that's like 2 seconds per kilometer over 56 kilometers that I'm lost somewhere. And I look at my moving time on Strava, and my moving time on Strava was 6:53. So, I mean, we talk about it often when it comes to comrades about wasting time and don't spend too much time at the refreshment tables and that sort of thing. And the only time I really stopped on race day was picking up one or two things from my family, and it was really quick stops. It wasn't long at all. And then at the water tables. And I mean, if you follow Two Oceans on social media, you'll know that there has been lots of chatter about the water tables. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to slate the race, but they were poor. I mean, standing in line to get water, it was just, they just couldn't keep up with the volume. There weren't enough tables, first of all. They were too far apart, in my opinion, for an ultra. And there just wasn't enough tables or people at the tables. I mean, I don't know logistically how those things happen, but there were lots of times when you got there and there was no cups of water. And then also the cups in South Africa, a lot of our races use sachet. It is single-use plastic, so there's been a lot of talk about that, particularly here in Cape Town, about the environmental impact of single-use plastic. So they've moved away from that. They're now using cups. And I just don't think it worked on Saturday again. I haven't run an Oceans. That was my first one, so I don't know if it was like that in previous years. But it was a challenge, if I have to be honest. And yeah, and then there were probably one or two other little things, and we can talk about it in my race strategy as well, sort of what I want to take out of it. But in all, I'm chuffed, to be honest. I feel good. Legs are a little bit sore this morning. I do have one or two issues, which we'll talk about from a physical perspective, some blisters that I need to deal with. But all in all, first ultra in 12 years, I'll take it.
Yeah, and it is, you did 56 Ks, and this, we've obviously had a little bit of a chat before this over the weekend, because it doesn't really matter which way you skin it. It is disappointing missing out on getting an official finish, but that was exactly it. There's a couple of positives that you can take out of this and a couple of negatives, and I think that's maybe where we kind of jump to next, is because we talk about this a lot in our talks, and when I'm going around doing the comrades road shows, etc., I always talk about, make lists, and this is what I'm talking about. And I think the easy part of this is to go, right, what did we do wrong? And some of it wasn't in your control, but we have to look at everything and go, right, what was in your control? And so, wasting time at water tables was one of those things. And it's why we hammer on it so much in our talks, when we give the how to save 20 minutes. I mean, this is the exact example. This is 56 Ks, and you've wasted, let's say with your family, you wasted less than 30 seconds across the two stops. That effectively means 5.5 minutes wasted at the water tables, and you only stopped as long as you absolutely needed to get your water. And I think that is why we always say, don't stop, keep moving. So yeah, I think if you went back, maybe you'd take a flask, knowing that there has to be a race, so that you'd only have to stop at every second or even third water table. But that the point here is, like, let's go through your race and go, right, where else do you feel like you could have made up some of that minute? I had a look at your pacing strategy. So I mean, you were basically as per your race plan, but it did take you longer on Chappies, and it did take you longer on Constantia Neck. And I wouldn't try and do those quicker, because from my point of view, not feeling what you were feeling and just analyzing what you did, you were able to run really fast over the last 6Ks, which tells you that, from a pacing strategy, you weren't far off, but that maybe we underestimated the degree of difficulty for you as an individual going up the neck and going up Chappies. And so perhaps you needed to be a little bit, not much, because it is a fine line, but a little bit quicker through the easy part on the 28K. And then without like really crushing your quads, to be a little bit quicker going into Hout Bay. And I think the combination of that and the water points. But anyway, what do you think?
Yeah, Lindsey, it's interesting because I actually don't know if I've told you this, but I did make 2 errors in my nutrition strategy that I think could have played into this as well. So I know you always say nothing new on race day, and I used new gels that I've never used. The gels were amazing. So I've changed gels. I'm super happy with the gels. One thing I did do is I did realize that I needed to eat more. So I'd organized baby potatoes with salt, which I'd done before. And then I also organized some banana bread, which I'd done on an Ironman before, but I've never really had properly in an ultra. And that little stretch from about 20 Ks to 25. So as you're coming up towards halfway, I had some banana bread just before then, and I just really couldn't get it down. It was making me feel a bit nauseous. So coming towards halfway. So once I got that down, I felt okay. But that was when I got to halfway, and that was when the climbing really started. And my family was at halfway, and I picked up some more baby potatoes, and I forgot to pick up my gels. The gels were in the cooler box, and I forgot to pick up my gels. So I ran out of gels on the stretch coming down Chapman's Peak towards Constantia Neck, which is the second big climb for those of you who haven't run 2 Oceans. And the refreshment table on Constantia Neck, just after the marathon mark, the only table, didn't have any Coke. So there was no carbs on that stretch of the run. So I really struggled up Constantia Neck. I literally walked the entire thing. So I lost a lot of time on Constantia Neck. And I think if I'd had my nutrition sorted, that was my mistake. I might have been able to walk that a little bit better. But when I got to the top of Constantia, the family was there again. I grabbed those gels and I literally smashed 2 of them back to back just to get me down. And I ran pretty well. I ran pretty well that last stretch. So I think obviously the water tables did play into it, but I think I was to blame partly too, that I did make that mistake. And lesson learned. Maybe I need to carry all the stuff I need, so I don't have to worry about when I see somebody I know that, oh, I need to get my gels. It's just really nice boost to see somebody I know. And you mentioned carrying a flask. I think in hindsight, I probably should have run with my hydration pack. I've run a lot of my long runs with it, so that could have really alleviated that problem. But I thought, you know what, the water tables generally on these ultras are pretty good, so I don't need to carry anything extra. Hindsight, I probably should have, and that would have made a huge difference. But the other, so from a pacing perspective, I could have probably, I feel I maybe went out too fast, slightly too fast on the first little. I was looking at my splits, and that might have helped me also on Constantia. That if I'd conserved a little bit more energy earlier on, I could have possibly run better in the second half. But I wasn't far off it. So it wasn't that I went out 15, 20 seconds too fast and blew up. I think my last split shows that. I ran really well that last split. And within, I mean, I needed to run the last 3Ks at 7 minutes a K, and I just wasn't able to do that, unfortunately. So that was I knew in the last K, I was like, I've got to go. If I can go like 6 minutes, okay, I've got a chance here, and I just couldn't do it. So it was disappointing, but yeah, I think lots of lessons learned. I think one of the other big things that I have to figure out is I sent you photos last night. I'm not going to do people on this podcast the disservice of showing them my feet, but I've got 2 massive blisters on the balls of my feet, which is a concern. Oceans is 56 Ks. I need to run close on 90 in 9 weeks from now. So I need to figure out why and how do we fix it. My gut feel, and I might be wrong, Linz, is because I pushed so hard in the last 8 Ks, there's lots of quite steep downs on that. They felt okay at the top of Constantia Neck, and I think I might have actually done the damage coming down those hills.
Yeah, and that's also when your proprioception is starting to go. And so, and probably shoes are wet. And I mean, that's the back end of 6 hours of exercise. So that's probably a combination of a lot of things. And if you do, if you don't let yourself get into a similar situation at Comrades, then you are obviously going to have a problem. So yeah, you've got quite a few things that you can put on that list, and you've got one more chance at False Bay 50 to put all those things right. And look, I think this is the important part that I try to stress with you, and we chatted yesterday, and that is that for you didn't make it, okay, 701, but the Two Oceans cutoff is much tighter than the Comrades cutoff. So it's always been Oceans. I mean, it used to be 6.5, I think, something crazy. I mean, imagine. And the silver cutoff, for example, is very hard compared to the Comrades one. You wanted to add something before I
Yeah, I was
carried
going to
on?
say, I was chatting to my brother yesterday. I think it was 6 back in the day. The Oceans cutoff was 6. And the qualifier used to be 4:15. You had to run a 4:15 marathon to qualify for the thing.
Yeah, so I remember it was wild back in the day. So yeah, essentially that's the real positive takeaways for me is that if you look at how you ran and how you were able to finish up, there is an ocean of difference between needing to average 7.5 and needing to average 8 minutes something. And you needing to run 7:16, or you did run 7:16, which just wasn't quite enough for the last 6 Ks, even if a lot of it was downhill. You have to average just over 8 minutes a K at Comrades, and that's force multipliers easier. And so for you, based on how you went at Oceans, probably looking at around 7:45, 7:50 is the right average for you, which suddenly gives you actually a bit of room to play with on Comrades race day. And so I don't expect you to be coming in the last 5 minutes at Comrades. I don't expect you to be there in 11:15, but probably somewhere around 11:45 to 11:50, and that is less stressful. Like, not being on the edge all day is way less stressful. So I think the beauty of False Bay is that you'll actually get to go and do actual Comrades planned pace, and then that'll really bring your confidence back. Plus, you'll have your little list of things that you can work on to make sure that those things go a little bit better for you at False Bay, all around give you a much more comfortable run, and then that's your confidence that'll go up. So yeah, I think what we really need to now start tucking into is what does your immediate future look like?
Yeah, I was going to say, because that's probably what we want to talk about on this podcast today is recovery post these sort of long runs, because it's 2 days post, and as you well know, the DOMs are real 2 days after. My quads, I'm actually, like, physically I'm okay, Lindsey. I'm really surprised at how well I came out of this thing, but my quads are properly sore. Like, I am struggling this morning, walking up and particularly downstairs. But yeah, what's the best way? Let's talk about how do we recover properly out of long efforts, long, hard efforts like this. If you're over 50 and want to recover from sessions faster, run pain and injury free, and improve your endurance, then be sure to join Lindsey and I for our upcoming Faster Beyond 50 Masterclass. In it, we'll show you how we helped a 70-year-old run a 47-minute, 18-second 10K, and how you can take those exact same principles and apply them in your training. Simply scan the QR code that's on screen right now, or click on the link in the description below to save your seat in the training now. We look forward to seeing you there.
So we're going to talk to you specifically in a moment, and that'll obviously be good advice for other people too. But what we want to do is exactly what you've done, is to take note of where we saw, how sore we are, and how long we are sore for. Okay, so those are the three important things that we need to have a look at. And it's normal to be sore, and it's quite normal to have today as your peak soreness. So if you are uncomfortable today, but not really sore, and runners struggle to differentiate between that. Uncomfortable means that when you take a step or two after sitting down for a while, you can definitely feel that there's something in your quads, but once you're moving, you're okay. You can barely notice it. Okay. Sore is when you can feel it every step, no matter whether it's extremely sore or just a little bit. If you can feel your muscles with every step, that's sore. Okay. That is called stiffness. That's exactly what Brad is talking about. Delayed onset of muscle soreness. That means that your muscles are damaged and desperately trying to repair themselves. Now, if that peak is today, and tomorrow when you wake up on Tuesday, it's feeling considerably better, and by Wednesday, there's just about nothing there, you can start to jog very easy, like recovery run, a minute to a minute and a half slower than marathon race pace. You can go for like 30 to maximum 40 minutes, nice, easy jog. I like using 20 minutes. Okay. My first run back from anything, 20 minutes, because 20 minutes generally is enough to really see if there's anything wrong with your legs. But also, it means that whatever route you plan, if something is wrong in those 20 minutes, you are within easy walking distance home, and you don't do anything silly by just running to get home so that you're not out there too long. Okay. So that's if today is your peak, tomorrow feels better, Wednesday just about fine. You can hit a 20-minute super easy jog on Wednesday. And then on the weekend, Wednesday or Thursday, and then on the weekend, you can go for like a 45 and an hour. That's kind of it. If you hit peak DOMs tomorrow on Tuesday, so that's day 3, that starts to tell us that you've done significant damage. So anything day 3, day 4, if you still are sore and you can feel with every step, you can feel something downstairs is a little bit more sore, that's a week of no running. Okay, so towards the back end of the week, you can get onto a stationary bicycle, maybe get onto elliptigo. You can almost certainly swim, but no impact exercise. In that scenario, I probably wouldn't even walk, to be honest. I would do non-impact, swimming, cycling, elliptical, that kind of thing, and very, very easy. Literally just enough to help the healing process by helping blood to get through those muscles, so that we can bring everything we need for the repair process to the muscles, and we can remove everything that we don't want there, the byproducts of muscle repair, the damaged muscle cells, etc., that the blood can remove all of that stuff away. So that's kind of your immediate rest kind of things. And then from a recovery perspective, this is where things like ice baths, things like compression socks, things like compression boots, and then obviously nutrition play a really big role in these next sort of 72 hours. So if you get a very light massage, if you get yourself into boots maybe 2 or 3 times, if you've got access to that, if you live in Cape Town, getting down to the ocean's very cold at the moment. So getting down to the oceans and soaking your legs in there every day, those are the kind of things that can speed this process up. But if you are still sore tomorrow, it's no running this week. Okay, we've got 9 weeks to comrades, and it's going to go much better for you if you use this week to recover properly and then to train nicely week 8, 7, 6, 5, rather than force it now because you're scared, because you're worried you're losing out, because you're worried you're losing fitness. You force it now, and then if you don't get injured, all that happens is that week 9, 8, 7, 6 is just bad training. You feel tired, you start to lose confidence. So this week is all about making sure that come next week, Monday, you've put yourself in a good position to have 3 to 4 weeks of really nice training.
Yeah, Linz, you talk about the sort of confidence of having it, and having a run like I had this weekend, it does knock your confidence a bit. But I was just thinking, as you were talking about there, comparing to my first comrades, and the similarities are actually quite weird, to be honest. I ran a marathon about the same time in the build-up and qualified with almost exactly the same time. So there was not that much difference between my two qualifying times. And then the first ultra I ran, which I really struggled with as well, also ended up with massive blister on the bottom of my foot. But if I think about the shape I was in finishing that ultra compared to the shape I was in finishing this ultra, it's two different things. So I'm feeling way, way, way better about that. And then talk to me about the role of sleep. I really, really struggle after these ultras because I'm sore. I just really struggle to sleep. But I mean, I always say that sleep's a superpower. What can I do to optimize my sleep, and what can anybody do to optimize their sleep, particularly this week?
So the sleep is a problem, particularly that first night, because your cortisol levels are so high. So after like 7 hours of stress, um, you're in trouble. I mean, your body's in trouble. You've probably also smashed, or not necessarily you in particular, because you're also not caffeine sensitive, but a lot of people have smashed caffeine, tons of sugar all day. There is some soreness and discomfort. You've woken up super, super early. So your body is just flooded with cortisol and you're uncomfortable. So the combination of those two things mean that the night of the race, typically you'll just have very poor, poor sleep. If you are someone who can nap, that's a really good workaround. So if you can, on the day of these sort of stressful things for your comrades long run, it would be a good thing to use, is that if you can nap during the day after that run, and then you probably won't sleep amazingly that night, and then the following day again some naps. Those will just really also help to pull the cortisol out, because if you can then get to night 2 at least with very little cortisol, then you'll sleep better. You might still be in a little bit of discomfort, which is exactly what you experienced, Brad. And then from night 3, you really should be starting to get to a point where you can sleep well. In these scenarios, again, with the advice of a doctor, you can look at using like sleep aids, melatonin, and or some mild sedative sleeping tablets. Those kind of things are very helpful, because if you can sleep well, you will recover much faster. And we all struggle, especially the night before, the night of, and then for a lot of people, still that second night. Although typically by the second night, I am sleeping quite well. And I'm also a ninja at afternoon naps. So, so I can make up for it definitely with naps. And if you can, you should.
Yeah, I hate to break the news to you, but I had a bit of an afternoon nap yesterday while your football team was losing. So, I bet you were wishing you were having an afternoon nap too.
Yes, I wish I could have slept through the first half, but at least in the second half, I walked away feeling like we weren't going to bin the whole league by playing ridiculous football for last 7 matches. But yeah, anyway, that's the sort of stuff that keeps us on our toes.
There were two things that sort of made me think this too. Linz, I mean, we speak about taking pain pills and anti-inflammatories during races, and what a big no-no that is. What about taking after a race like this? Will taking anti-inflammatories speed up this process of recovery? And what about taking pain tablets? Like, I'm just thinking for me in particular, like struggling to sleep. I mean, you talk about sedatives and that sort of thing, but would pain tablets help? Obviously, your body's still under stress. Is it a good idea? Is it not a good idea?
So, look, I think it'll definitely take away part of the pain cycle because it will reduce the inflammation. I'm always uncomfortable telling people to take any medication that should be dispensed by a doctor or a pharmacist. Yeah, and again, there's some studies to suggest that using things like both ice baths and anti-inflammatories actually reduces the benefit that you will get from letting the natural kind of healing take its place. But because an ultra marathon in particular is such a big hit and the damage is so big, I feel like right now the quicker we can get you back to being in a good place to train at low risk of hurting yourself, the better. And so there may well be a place for it, but I'm definitely uncomfortable recommending that people do it. So yeah, I think this is the kind of thing that a chat with a family doctor or with the pharmacist at your local pharmacy, just to make sure that if you are tempted to do that, that you do it safely, do it with the right protocols and guidelines.
And then let's talk about those horrible blisters that I've picked up. What's the best way to sort these things out? Do you leave them? Do you drain them? What's the situation?
So again, typically I leave them, but that's because typically when you get these kind of blisters, you are at the end of, you normally get those the day of the race that you need to do them with. We chatted about this super briefly on Saturday, I think. And just because of how you had to run, I felt like you were in for this week, basically no running, maybe a bit of cycling next week, some proper cycling to work on fitness through cycling, but that your feet would take about 2 weeks to heal. And then in hindsight, and with the fact that one of them actually popped anyway while you were out supporting your wife in the half marathon, that actually reminded me, like, no, actually, when you've got to get back to training fairly soon, then helping those blisters along with a sterilized needle. And in fact, probably the best way to do it is to get the needle all the way through and then to leave a cotton thread in there. So it just slowly drains everything out. And then when that blister then sits up against your foot again, it normally sits there fairly well. It heals quite quickly. And you lose that sensitivity on the skin, where sometimes if you just pop it, that skin can tear quite quickly, and then you straight onto that very sensitive new skin, which in itself can be a little bit of a problem. So look, we'll see how yours go. But next week, if everything's feeling well, but there's just a bit of sensitivity on that skin, then what we will do is we'll close that up with some elastoplast, and then we just clean it after every run. But typically that will then be enough. Look, your blister is also in a particularly bad place. It's right on the ball of your foot. It's where you're going to land and put pressure with every step. So, normally we'll have this kind of blister on your heel, on one of the toes. And so, even though it's a little bit uncomfortable, running can proceed quite quickly, and it just improves day after day. Yours, we're just going to have to go like a little bit on feel, but after popping the one, we've drained the other. And so I think by the end of the week, you'll be in a pretty good place with your feet.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We'll see how things go. But Linz, just to wrap things up, I'm going to put you on the spot here. We have to tell the story because this is one of the funniest things that happened this weekend. Tell us the story about one of your running club mates, what he ended up doing in the middle of this 56K ultra on Saturday.
Yeah, so there is a little disclaimer here. because he was going to race a really fast Oceans, but he hurt himself. I think 2 weeks ago, he hurt himself and did all the good things, whatever, gave himself a little tester. In fact, I saw him just after he did the test. I just happened to be running the same park run as him on that particular occasion, and everything was cool, good to go. And then I saw him at 28 Ks, and I ran across the road to say, how are you doing? And he said, nah, my injury flared up. I can run, but I can't push it. So I'm actually going to head off to the Hout Bay park run and do park run and then carry on going with my Oceans, which he did. So he did park run in Hout Bay. And so, of course, when I told you, you messaged me to say, well, hang on, what's his problem? Why is he being so selective? Why didn't he do Fishhook? Because we literally run a few meters away from the Fishhook park run on the Two Oceans route. And he said, Coach, you don't think, you know me, you don't think I didn't check, but Fishhook was closed today. So I didn't do the Fishhook park run, but I did the Hout Bay park run. And just for anybody listening that doesn't quite understand the mechanics of this, park run starts at 8 o'clock. Two Oceans started at 5:15. And so it means that he was in Hout Bay, which is almost at the marathon mark. So between 5:15 in the morning and 8 a.m., he had made it to just about the marathon mark and then had to go off course to get to the park run and then get back on course for the park run. So I didn't actually see his final finishing time. I should have looked. But he probably means it probably means he was at the marathon mark, certainly around the 3:15 to 3:20 mark. If you take out the park run. So not a bad runner, which is probably why he can afford to do these silly things.
When you told me, I had such a good laugh. And then I actually thought about it subsequently. There's actually another park run that he could have done as well on the route. And it would have been even better because if you're an alphabeteer, the Zs are really difficult to find. And that was a Z on the route as well.
Except that I've done that one and he would have gotten there at like running at his pace. He would have been there between 6:15 and 6:30. So
nobody would have been
to sit there and wait a while. Yes.
Absolutely brilliant. What a cool story. Lindsey, as always, thank you so much. We're back again next week. And thank you so much for listening. We're going to be talking a little bit about the final Comrades run in the build-up. There's a couple of big ones coming up in South Africa as well that we're going to talk about in next week's podcast. So thank you so much for listening. If you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, please do so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming podcasts in the build-up to the 2025 Comrades Marathon. Recover well if you did run Two Oceans this weekend. Congratulations on your runs as well. And we look forward to catching up next week. Cheers.